Hello and welcome to this mat Pilates workout. We're going to start standing today, doing a little bit of thoracic spine mobility work, flexing and extending that mid back. Try and keep the pelvis steady and neutral as you round through your mid back and then shine the chest forward to extend the spine. Thinking about curving, hollowing out around your chest, that sternum bone, and then extending in between the shoulder blades to shine the chest forward. Now we'll move the thoracic spine laterally, moving from side to side, just with the rib cage. Again, keep the legs, the pelvis steady as you move the ribs to the right and to the left. Really trying to isolate the ribs, stretching out through the waist, warming up those obliques a little. Relaxing through the shoulders, and then add those two things together to make circles. Take the ribs to one side, forward, to the other side and back. Really try and stir that rib cage over the top of the pelvis, trying to get in each direction, side, back, side and forwards with that mid back. Once we've done a few each way, let's flex to one side, rotate down towards the floor, roll through that mid and lower back and come all the way up on the other side. This is another one to stretch out that mid to lower back, so don't go too low to the hands to the floor. One more each way, get that flexion, turn to the floor, stretch out through that upper mid back, hollow out your abdominals as you scoop down to the floor. Those arms just come in front of your knees and all the way back up to center and upright. Then we'll start with single leg marching, warming up, waking up those hip flexors by lifting that knee towards your chest. Stand nice and tall as you lift and lower one leg at a time. You can always hold on for balance. We'll take it into external rotation. So turn the knee out, turn out from the hip as the knee continues to lift from side to side up towards each shoulder. Then we'll take it across your body for internal rotation of that hip, thinking about driving the knee up across that midline, keeping stable through the shoulders as you just work internally into your hip, still warming up those hip flexors. Then let's swing the leg to the right and to the left. Hold on for balance if you need to as you do these pendulum swings. Other leg, pick it up in parallel and then shake it out to the right and to the left, just shaking out through that hip. Relax and loosen that leg. When you're even on both sides there, you can find the floor, come to the front edge of your mat. We're going to come down to our mat, sit yourself down, lay on your back. We'll go into some pelvic curls, rolling into your shoulder bridge. Just about 3 here to warm up. When you're ready, you take that breath, you exhale, peel the pelvis off your mat, lift those hips, and then roll it back down to your mat, bone by bone. Articulating that spine, squeezing those hamstrings and glutes as you go. We'll do one more rolling bridge here, lifting those hips, reaching those knees forwards, and then keep lifted as you drop one hip and lift it up. So we've got a single hip, kind of hip dip. The pelvis and the hip drops and squeeze that hamstring and glute to lift the pelvis nice and level again. Drop one hip and then squeeze that hamstring and glute to lift up. Just isolating each side, the right and the left side of the body. Doing these hip lifts and then roll it down to the floor. Take a moment, roll yourself back up into your shoulder bridge. We're going into some calf raises. So you're just going to lift and lower both heels off your mat. Try and stay balanced through the balls of the feet. Warming up through those calves, lifting up, lowering down with control. Think about pulling those heels towards you as you lower down to stay active through the back of the leg. Keep those hips lifted and balanced here, nice and steady in that shoulder bridge. Take it all the way down to your mat and rest for a second. Moving on to leg swings now. That leg will go out and up, down and in, just swinging one leg through that hip, but with control. Get that extension along the mat and get that stretch of your hamstring as the leg goes up to the ceiling. Stable through the other side of the leg and the pelvis, and then switch it over. Extend the leg out and it goes up, down, and pull the leg back over the hip. Steady through the torso here as you do a little bit more mobility work through that hip, swinging that leg out and in, down and up. Get that nice stretch of your hamstring, work that hip flexor, and then you can put that foot back on your mat. We're going to come up to tabletop with those legs. Hands come behind your legs, come up to your chest lift, hands come behind your head. Single leg extension now. The leg reaches out, it comes back to tabletop. Flex the feet here to really drive through that heel to get the extension of your leg along the mat. The leg can be up to the ceiling or down, hovering above your mat. Find your angle so your pelvis doesn't tip. Add rotation now, so just rotate that shoulder across to the opposite knee while extending the leg straight out to center. Keep the shoulders lifted, lift a little higher to get your twist. Find that reach and length through the leg as it goes out away from you. Pull it back in, lower the head and the chest and rest for a moment. Let's rotate through our pelvis now, so we'll come into our supine spine twist. Legs to tabletop, arms beside the body. The legs go over to one side, come back to center. Take the legs, feet, knees, everything goes from side to side while keeping your shoulders anchored down to the mat. That opposite hip will lift as your legs go to one side. Pull on the obliques, draw deep on those abdominals to bring the legs back to tabletop. One more each way, to the right and to the left, and then rest for a moment. You have the option to repeat that, or we go into our corkscrew. Legs are fully extended up to the ceiling. They go over to one side, they go down and around to the other side, and then come back to center. Making a little semicircle with those legs while keeping anchored down into your shoulders. Those arms are pressing into the floor. Work those obliques in the lower abdominals to get that little semicircle. The legs stay glued together as they circle down and around all the way to the other side, and then pull them back to center. When you're even on both sides, you can bend those legs, hug the knees into the chest for a moment and rest. Take a stretch here, extend those legs out, but then take them wider than the hips, so about mat width distance apart. Hands come behind your head for chest lift, but with the legs extended along your mat, with those legs slightly wider than the hips. Try and keep a neutral pelvis as you lift off your mat. The option is always to bend those legs slightly, have the feet on the floor to keep your pelvis neutral if it's too much with the legs straight. Otherwise, the legs are pressing into the mat as you lift and lower through the head and the chest. And then let's add on. The right leg will lift and tap across to meet your left leg as you lift the head and the chest. Lift, it taps across, it reaches back to the right as you lower down. Only moving through that right leg in the hip. Anchor down that left side, anchor down the back of the hip. And then switch it over. Left leg taps across to meet your right. Use that inner thigh of the left leg to bring it across the midline to tap that right leg. And then lift and lower with the head and the chest straight through center as you're doing this leg adduction work. Rest for a moment here. We're going to in external rotation now of that right leg. As you lift the chest, it bends towards you, knee goes out, and then you can reach and extend that right leg away from you, nice and straight. Try and hover it above your mat. Only about 5 of these on the right, and then you can lower that leg 5 on the left. The leg lifts, it turns out, and then it reaches away from you on that diagonal extension if you can, if not just straight out the midline. Find that rotation in that hip socket, pull the knee in, lift that chest to that thigh and rest. Take a big stretch here, we'll roll ourselves up to seated. As you exhale, roll up. Take a forward fold, just stretch out through your back and then roll it back down to your mat with control. Arms float overhead. Let's go again. Exhale, lift arms, head and chest and roll yourself forward and up. Stretch to your toes, then with control, roll it back down to your mat. Heavy with the ribs, look at the feet as you roll up, hollow out your belly and reach it forwards. And then keep that C curve as you roll it down through the spine all the way to the mat. A bit more abdominal work here. Those legs are going to come up towards the ceiling or the sky if you're outside. You're going to have your hands behind your head. The legs will lower away from you. One leg is straight, one leg bends. Then switch those legs. The heel goes down to the glute as the other leg is straight, lowers down to your mat. Add that little pelvic curl as those legs reach back up to straight up to the ceiling. Peel that tailbone and the sacrum off your mat and then send those legs away down to the mat. Add rotation here as well. So the legs go down away from you, bending the knee and twist that shoulder to that opposite knee. Pulling on the abdominals to lift those legs back up to ceiling. Take it into that little pelvic curl. As those legs reach up, they lower down and rest for a moment here. Take one leg up to the ceiling and internally, externally rotate that leg. It doesn't move side to side, you just find internal rotation and then add some leg circles here, maybe 5 in one direction. Try and maintain that internal rotation of that hip socket. So different to being external or parallel, turn that leg in and then reverse your leg circles. That other leg reaching along your mat is nice and active here. Anchoring that leg down as you circle the leg internally through that hip socket. Switch the legs over. First start internally and externally rotating the leg in the hip socket. See what range you have as it goes side to side, that foot. Then you can extend the other leg along your mat. Find that internal rotation and then begin those leg circles. If it's too much to hold your internal rotation, you can always come to a parallel leg alignment as you do the circles. You can always softly bend that knee as well. But try and keep anchored down through the shoulders, that leg that's extended along the mat as you do about 5 circles in each direction, and then the foot can come to the floor to rest there for a moment. Bring your legs up to tabletop. This time though, turn the feet and legs out into a frog, so heels join together, and then press those legs away on that diagonal line, but keep your frog leg position so you're externally rotated through your hip joint now. The knees are turned out, the feet are turned out. You're reaching those legs to straight. Pull the knees back over the hips. Pull deep on the belly, especially as those legs go away from you. Keep that external rotation. Then reach your legs up. We do our lower and lift here with the external rotation. The legs lower only as far as they can without letting the belly rise. You can take one hand to your belly button. Don't let the belly rise to meet that hand as those legs go away down to the floor. Keep the external rotation, so squeeze your inner thighs together here and rest for a moment. Take a breath and extend those legs along your mat. Arms reach overhead. We'll roll ourselves to a seated position to come all the way up as we transition. We're going to come up and over. We're going to come into a bit of back extension, but let's come into plank to lower down into our prone position here. So set yourself up in a nice strong plank, drop it to the knees if you want, and then lower to the floor with control, all the way to the floor. Let's have the legs a little wider than they usually are, so wider than the hips, and the arms in goalposts. As you inhale, you're going to just lift the head and the upper back and then lower back down. Keep those arms in goalposts, keep them pressing into the floor. Keep those legs resting into the floor as well as you just work through those upper back extensor muscles. Looking down at the floor, keep length through that cervical spine. Use those arms just as an assist, get the work from the core. Now you extend a little further. Those arms can reach a little further in front of you as you inhale, lift up, exhale, lower back down to the floor. Take a breath and a reach and extension. Try and get those arms straight so they can go as far forward as they need to be. But really think lifting from your upper back and not dumping down into that lower back. You can only just come up to the forearms, hinging from your elbow if that's as high as you can go. Otherwise, those elbows lift and you extend the arms all the way to straight as you lift up into your back extension. Now let's go back and let's bring the arms to goalposts and take the arms with you as you lift the head and the upper back. Inhale, arms and head and upper back lift off your mat. Exhale to lower back down to the floor. Arms are lifting up to about ear height and then lower down. Rock your hips from side to side for a moment. We'll take the arms back to goalpost. Now we lift arms, head and legs lift. It's like a skydiver position. Inhale, lift into skydiver. Exhale, lower everything down to the floor. The back of the head is lifted. Those elbows are lifted up to the ceiling. Those feet are reaching up to the ceiling. Nice and long with your legs. Reach and extend. Pull the belly deep as you come off your mat. And then you can push yourself up and over, take that child's rest pose, sit those hips back over your heels, round out that lower back. Maybe rock your hips from side to side. We'll come back down to your mat in prone. We're going to take the legs wide. You're going to tap your feet together and draw those elbows into your waist each time you lift. So inhale, elbows draw down into the waist as those legs lift and then tap together. So everything lifts and then draw everything into the midline, come back and lower to the floor. Lifting, tap together, open out and lower back down. Rock your hips side to side for a moment here. We're going to go into a swimming variation. This time though, those legs will tap together and those thumbs will tap together. So you're tapping into the center, into that midline, instead of going up and down. Everything moves in and out as you breathe. Heels tap together, thumbs tap together as your arms are reaching overhead. Breathe here, stay lifted through your upper back, active through those hamstrings and glutes, and rest for a moment. Now our second variation of the swim, this time the legs will continue to tap together. Bring those hands behind your back, palms face down. Now you lift up through your upper back and try to tap your little fingers together. Those arms are lifted and reaching behind you over your bottom as those little fingers tap and your legs are tapping together as you breathe in and out. Keep nice and long and reaching, lifting higher. And lower everything to the floor. Push yourself up and over. Take that child's rest pose here. Round out your back. Big deep breath. Release through the head and the neck. We're going to come up and we'll do a little bit more working through our hamstrings and glutes. Flipping yourself up and over, back laying down on our mats. You can roll all the way back down. And then you'll bring your feet to the mat, bend those legs, set yourself up for your pelvic curls rolling into your shoulder bridge. So those heels not too far away from those glutes. Peel that pelvis and spine off your mat and roll it back down to the mat. Just a couple of pelvic curls rolling into that shoulder bridge just to fire up those hamstrings and glutes again. Align your spine, getting that articulation. And then we'll be doing some single leg bridging work. So one leg comes to tabletop and you extend out, pull in, just like you did before in the abdominal set. This time the hips stay lifted, nice and level. As you press through that heel, pull back to tabletop. After about 5, straighten the leg lower and lift 5 of these. Reach that leg nice and straight up and away from you. You can point and flex through that foot as well if you would like. And then finishing with 5 hip lifts. Lower down halfway, squeeze the glute to lift back up. Nice and stable and level, that foot can come to the floor. Roll it all the way back to the mat, realign yourself, and we'll go again on the other side. Take a breath and peel up. Extending that left leg away and pulling back to tabletop. Try and keep those hips really stable, nice and level. That right supporting side is really anchored as we do this left bridging work. The leg lowers and lifts now, pointing and flexing through that left foot. Only lower down to that supporting leg, making sure your pelvis doesn't tip into that anterior tilt. And then lower and lift the hips. Squeeze the glutes and hamstrings each time you press that foot up to the ceiling. After 5, foot comes to the floor. Roll it all the way back down to your mat with that exhale and take a breath there. Setting ourselves up now for some side lying work. Roll over onto your side. We'll start with the double leg lower and lift, so you can always be laying down on that mat with those legs slightly in front of your hip, resting the head on the arm, maybe about 10 double leg lower and lift if we can. Really testing that balance, reach that top arm up to the ceiling if you want a challenge, otherwise it's in front of your chest, fingers lightly tipping the floor as we use that arm as a kickstand. Reach those legs each time you exhale and lift them off the floor. After about 10, that top leg will come in front of the bottom leg. We'll work that inner thigh of your bottom leg by lifting and lowering it off the mat. Keep it nice and long and reaching. Try and keep the hips stacked here and the shoulders stacked, even with the external rotation of that top leg through the hip. Reach that bottom leg up and hovering above your mat, and then let's make tiny circles through that hip joint of your bottom leg, circling in one direction, breathing through this, and reverse those circles. Tiny circles, not to move through that pelvis. You're active through that underneath oblique. After the circles here, you can lower that foot to the floor. Go ahead, bend those legs, prop yourself up on your forearm now. We're going to do some kneeling side planking. So you're going to take that breath, lift the hips off your mat, lower back down. Strong through the shoulder of that supporting bottom arm. We're lifting and lowering through our underneath side here. Knees rest on the floor, you're just lifting from your hip. After about 5 of these, go ahead and extend the top leg like a kneeling star. You can always keep the hips on the mat for this one, otherwise you're pushing up and reaching that leg away from you, adding that arm if you want as well. Keep it lifted and make tiny circles with that top leg now, and tiny circles in the other direction, just a little bit more on this side. Lower down and rest. Set yourself up. You can repeat what we just did, or you push into your full side plank on that forearm now. Only about 5 here, lifting and lowering, reaching up to the ceiling. Once you've done 5, you can roll it over onto your back. Take a figure 4 stretch, perhaps have that top leg after all that outer thigh work with the lift and the lower. Big deep breaths through the ribs here. Sit yourself up, roll yourself over. Let's do that work on the other side. So align yourself on the mat, nice straight spine. Those legs are slightly in front of you like a banana shape. Let's aim for about 10 lifts and lowers of the legs, gluing them together. They're nice and reaching. That lower back is long, belly's pulled in and up, and you're active through that underneath oblique. If this is a more challenging side with the balance, you can always use that top arm as a kickstand. or reach it to the ceiling. Don't wobble around here. And then take that top leg in front of your bottom leg. We lift and lower your bottom leg now. If it's too much on the hip to get the external rotation, that top leg can always go behind your bottom leg. But we're working the inner thigh of your bottom leg now, just slightly lifting and lowering above, off the mat. And then you make your little circles in one direction. Keep reaching that heel away from you. Think about circling through the heel. Reverse those circles now, but the circles come from that femur bone in that hip socket, relaxing that head and neck to finish off. Once you've done, lower the leg down, bend your legs, feet behind you, knees in front, push yourself up on your forearm. We've got your 5 forearm kneeling side planks, up and down with those hips. Exhale, lift, inhale, lower. 3 more. Reach that top arm if you can. 1 more here. And then go ahead, add the top leg extension. So reach and lift and extend your top leg away. Keep everything in parallel, so that leg, the hips, shoulders facing forwards as you push up from your underneath side, strong through that supporting shoulder on that bottom arm, finishing with our leg circles through that top hip, lowering it down to the mat if you need to. Keep stable through your torso as you reverse your circles now. Big deep breaths, reaching away from you with that leg, lowering down with control. Take a breath, setting yourself up for the full side plank if you wish, or otherwise repeat it on your knees. Just 5 to finish now. Work through that underneath oblique. Relaxing through the head, looking down at your forearm if you need. And once you're done, lay yourself down on your back. Take that figure 4 stretch. Big deep breath, open out through that hip. Feel that stretch through the sides of the glute and the thigh. Once you've had a stretch there, go ahead and extend your legs along your mat. Take those arms overhead. We're going to do a roll up to transition to seated. Whatever way you want to get up to a seated position on your mat, take it now. Once you're up, grab a timer. I use my phone here. We're going to do a little bit of leg and glute work, timing ourselves on each side. We're going to be in a quadruped position. Set your timer for 1.5 minutes, or you can just follow along here. We're circling our leg through the hip, making big circles, keeping a 90-degree position of that knee, circling through that left hip. Up, open and down with your circles. Drive that foot up to the ceiling like a donkey kick before opening through that left hip to reach that left knee out away from you, and then it lowers back down to the mat. You can do these on the hands or lower down to the forearm, but keep the belly pulled in and up, especially the lower abdominals, especially when that foot goes up to the ceiling. We don't want the lower back to arch. Reverse your circles now. We go out, the leg goes up, and then it comes back down to the mat. Really open to the left. Try and get that opening through the external rotators of your left hip. Work your hamstring and glute as you bring the foot behind you. Try and get that knee in line with the hip. Then the knee lowers down to the floor, meeting the other knee. Stable through those shoulders here. Just work with this. 45 seconds in each direction. Highly repetitive, but it starts to burn, but we really try to mobilize and strengthen and tone those muscles of the hip and the glute. Almost done on this side. Keep lifting that leg up, opening it out, and then take a breath there. We're done with our 1.5 minutes. Set yourself up. We're going to go straight into the other side. The leg lifts behind you. It opens out. It lowers down. Thinking about that donkey kick to start, then reach that right knee out away from you, then lower it to the mat. Try not to let the hips shift over to your left as that right knee opens out to the right. We really want to keep your left thigh vertical and stable and strong here. Left hip over that left knee, even though you've just worked that side. Keep circling through that right hip. Abs are engaged here. Get yourself ready. We're almost done on this direction. Now we reverse. Opposite direction with our circles for 45 seconds. Breathe as you circle. You've got plenty of time to try and get as much range through that hip joint as possible. Again, we're not dumping over to that opposite side as you try to make those circles through that hip joint. We're not arching the back and the pelvis tipping as that foot goes behind you. Work within your own range and your own stability here. Almost done on this side. Big deep breaths, relax the head and the neck. Always dropping it to your forearms is an option if you feel strain on the wrists in this quadruped position. And we are done on this side. Nice work. That was 1.5 minutes on both sides. So take a big rest here. Child rest pose if you would like. Release through those hips. Drop those hips to your heels. Maybe circle through your wrists if you need to release the hands and the wrists there. All right, come on up. You set your timer down if you are using one. We're going to come up to standing for some roll downs and push-ups. A bit of arm work to finish here, or almost finish. Take a big deep breath as you tuck your chin to your chest and begin to peel your spine down away from that imaginary wall. Hands go to the floor, knees can bend as much as you need. Walk your hands out to that plank, and we're doing 5 push-ups here. Drop it to the knees if you need, nice and strong. You've got 2 more, pushing up. Once you've done about 5, pike your hips here. Pedal the feet out, just reach your heels into the floor. You can get a calf stretch here as those hips lift up. And then you can walk your hands back to your feet, roll yourself all the way up. Squeeze those glutes as you restack the spine, shoulders down away from your ears. We're going to go again. Reset yourself now, roll it down towards the floor. Up and over an imaginary ball as you roll to the floor, walk your hands out. This time it's a set of wide push-ups, so the hands wider than the mat. 5 more if you can, dropping it to the knees if you need. Work those chest muscles with those hands out wide. And then after 5, pike your hips up here, walk the hands back to your feet. If you need to take a stretch of your calves, you can pedal out the heels into the mat, and then you're going to roll all the way up to standing. We are going to do that 2 more times. We can do wide arm push-ups and tricep push-ups, whatever variation you would like, just to get moving through that chest, through those arm muscles. Take the roll down here, up and over an imaginary ball, rounding, and then walking to a nice strong plank. On the knees if you wish for this second set. Tricep push-ups here, just a 5. Elbows are nice and narrow as they graze the ribs. The head and shoulders and spine are nicely aligned. Once you've done, pedal those feet out, take that big downward dog stretch, walk your hands back to your feet, roll yourself all the way up to standing. 1 more set to go. Again, if you prefer to work your triceps, just stick with another set of 5 tricep push-ups. Otherwise, you can do the wide arm push-ups where those hands are slightly wider than the mat. Whatever you need for your arms and chest here, nice and strong. Keep the back of the head lifted, pull the belly in and up, squeeze your glutes for your last couple. And once you've done, drop it to the knees here. Take a breath and let's do a couple of cat-cows. Just round your spine and then find that inhale and extension. Looking at those thighs as you round your spine, pulling the belly in and up. And then keep that engagement of the abdominals as you lengthen and flatten your back. After a couple of cat-cow to reset, we are going to come back up and over. Now's a good time to stretch and finish up if you would like. If you want to do these advanced moves, we're going to start with some rollover prep, but then we will go on to rollover, boomerang and neck pull. So rollover prep, legs are up to the ceiling, just crossing one leg in front, about 5 here, peeling the pelvis, tailbone off your mat with control of those abdominals. Switch those legs and you can take your hands behind your head for the next set. No support of your arms this time, just those abdominals, having to engage to lift the hips off the mat, reach those feet up. Once you've done rollover prep, stick with that if you want. We're adding on. Those legs are in tabletop. They tap away from you, move through the hips, and then pull the legs back to tabletop towards you as you peel the hips off your mat. So those legs reach away, then you add that pelvic curl. Couple more, reach those legs away, engage those abdominals, peel that tailbone off your mat. Nice and stable as the legs go away. Don't let the pelvis tip into your anterior tilt here. Lower the feet to the floor, catch your breath there. You can stick with those rollover prep versions or go into the full version. Those legs will extend. You're going to go up and over with those legs. Feet flex, separate slightly, tap the floor, keep those hips lifted as you roll down through your spine, bone by bone. Those legs will circle away, join together, and we go up and over again. Maybe just 3 here just to get that articulation through your spine. Nice long legs as you roll it down with control. One more, up and over with the legs. Flex your feet, get a stretch of those hamstrings. Keep those legs long as you control the way the spine goes back to your mat. Hug the knees in, rest there for a moment. That was a lot of inversion, so just take a big deep stretch here. We're going to roll ourselves all the way up, roll ups here, up towards your feet, roll over. Hands come behind your head and you take that forward fold round the spine here. Then extend the spine on your diagonal, lifting up, hinge it back. Then release from your pelvis to roll back through your spine all the way to your mat. Those arms can reach in front of you and then go overhead again. We're going to do that one more time. I'll roll up, bring it down into that neck pull. Roll with control. Keep those legs anchored to the floor. Find the stretch here through the spine. Extend on the inhale. Hinge it back. Don't let the belly pop or the ribs flare. And then exhale, release and roll down all the way to the mat. Arms come overhead. Stick with that version, or you can go into the full version of neck pull with your hands behind your head to start. Lift up, scoop those abdominals, keep the C curve as you take it forward. Then you find your extension, hinging it back. Keep those hands behind your head as you release and roll to your mat. Take a breath and let's do one more. Roll it up. The hands behind your head. You don't have the arms reaching to help you roll up now. Press the head into your hands and then control it with the abdominals. Watch for any ribs flaring here. Down to the mat and take a breath. Nice work. We're going to roll it all the way up for the boomerang. When you're ready, one leg crosses over the other. Find yourself where you've got space to roll back. Roll it through the spine. Arms reach, hit your boomerang. Legs hover off your mat. You've got to go up and over with the legs. Switch them and then roll it down just like the rollover. Coming up, legs go away, roll yourself up into your teaser. Arms go behind you, you get the back extension, lower with the legs, nice and controlled. Forward fold, let's go again. Roll it down, up and over with your legs. Switch them, use your inner thighs to keep the legs glued together. Roll it back down to the mat with control. Start to peel up, find your teaser. Inhale, arms can press back or you can join the hands. Take that forward fold over your legs. We're going to do one more each way. Lots of abdominal engagement. Those hips lift when you're in that inversion. Those legs keep reaching as you roll through your spine. Find that teaser. You can bend the legs at any point here. If not, they're nice and long and engaged. Forward fold. Last time, roll it down to your mat. Boomerang shape, lifting those hips, switching out your legs. Exhale, rolling it down, lifting through your head and neck, coming up. Reach those arms, lower the legs with control, finish with your forward fold and breathe. Nice work there with that boomerang. Very difficult advanced move. Always the options to skip it or break it down as needed. Take a butterfly stretch here with those legs. So feet, soles of the feet together, releasing the head and the neck here. Just stretch your inner thighs, open those knees out. You can just sit nice and tall or take a little forward hinge here to go deeper into the inner thigh stretch. And then let's bring one sole of the foot into your inner thigh, align over that straight leg for a hamstring stretch here. Big deep breath as you stretch over, and then that foot can come over the straight leg, twist away from it to get a spine twist here. Make sure you're pulling the abs in as you rotate away from your legs, getting that twist through the spine, and then let's switch it over. Opposite sole of the foot comes to your inner thigh, square off the hips, fold over that straight leg. You can take as long as you need to do these stretches, but just trying to finish up here within about 40 minutes of a workout. Whatever you need to stretch through the legs, maybe a bit more of a figure four, or you can do a spine twist here. If you hug that knee as you twist the spine, you stretch your outer thigh and glute, a bit like that figure four. Big deep breath in, looking over the shoulder. Exhale and twist a bit deeper if you can. Then return back to facing forward. Cross those legs, come to a comfortable seated position here. If you're doing this workout when it's 86 degrees, waft your face and breathe here. If not, make sure you drink plenty of water and be in the air conditioning. If it's hot with you, take that big stretch up, maybe side bend here. Shoulders plugged down the back as you lower those arms, and nice work, guys. We're done for the day.